Stewart Carroll, welcome to the Preconstruction Podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for inviting us down. Stewart, we are on the 20th floor here in Elm Street in downtown Dallas. It's a long way from your time in University of Iowa. Take us back there and give us an idea of how you got into the construction industry, and in particular, construction technology.
Being from England, I ended up choosing to go to university in America, and I was a swimmer.
Very good.
So had opportunities to go to a number of universities. Picked the University of Iowa. In hindsight, everyone says, but the weather's so bad, why on earth would you pick Iowa?
Yeah.
You could have gone to UCLA, you could have gone to Florida, could have gone to Michigan. I picked Iowa because I had three friends who were on the British national team, one of whom I trained with, who ended up going to the University of Iowa. And when you're 5,000-6,000 miles away from home, you want to go somewhere where you know
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I ended up picking the University of Iowa really because of friends.
Yeah.
And I went over as a swimmer. I ended up doing an undergraduate degree in computer science with an emphasis on how do you apply computer technology to engineering. When I was done with swimming, I ended up going to graduate school, and I ended up having a focus around building simulation. How can you use computers to simulate the built environment? Once I was done with graduate school, I decided, 7 years away from home, I wanted to go home. I took a job working for a company called Reflex, and Reflex was the first of its kind 3D parametric modeling technology. I worked for Reflex for about 18 months. Reflex ended up getting bought by a US company called PTC up in Boston. Whilst I was in Boston, I worked with the two founders of Revit. I worked with the founder of SolidWorks. One of the guys who I worked with ended up going and leading the development efforts at Bentley. So it really was an AEC think tank.
Yeah.
About 5-6 years into my time at PTC, Y2K, the dot-gone era, so to speak, PTC decided that they were no longer really interested in the building industry and started looking for buyers for the technology that I was working on. And I ended up coming down to Dallas and meeting with the Beck Group, who was one of our customers, and met Peter for the very first time, my boss, Peter Beck. And I guess the first connection with Peter was his daughter is a swimmer, swam at the University of Texas, was an All-American swimmer, and we kind of hit it off, nothing really to do with work, but everything to do with swimming.
Sport, yeah, always sport.
I guess Peter liked what we were doing, like me, and made an offer to PTC to acquire the IP of the business that I was in, and a group of us were basically sold to the Beck Group. So I ended up moving from Boston down to Dallas. I had a pregnant wife during all of this, and I ended up driving down with my two dogs, and my wife ended up flying down, and she came in cool as a cucumber into a 100-degree midsummer kind of day, and I'd been driving for 4 days and was ready to be wrung out like a sponge.
Yeah.
But that's how I ended up at Beck.
Brilliant. University of Iowa, computer science, I was thinking Silicon Valley, Facebook, Google, but obviously during your studies it was always going to be within AEC.
Yeah. Well, I always knew at first, I thought, computers, and where's computers going? So that was one area. The second area that really fascinated me was the built environment. And one of my best friends was a structural engineer, and it just felt like there's a huge opportunity in our industry to test it before we build it. And if, the more I got talking to professors and people that had really practiced in construction, it became pretty apparent to me that the world of construction was design it and build it and then start all over again. And it felt like it was really ripe for a technological innovation. And I thought, I still feel that simulation, the ability to analyze what could be and test out what we're going to build before we build it, has an awful lot of potential in our industry.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm really interested in Precon.
Yeah.
Is if you really think about what Precon has become, it really is trying to figure out what are the ramifications of a potential idea.
Yeah.
And you know, historically, Precon's all about cost. I sort of see it as cost is an outcome, but the size and shape of the building, the materials that we select, the location of the facility, they're all the things that you need to simulate to say, is the cost outcome what we really want to get?
Yeah.
And then you change the scenario and simulate it. So that was really my, you know, aha out of the University of Iowa. When I was in Boston, it was very stressful. I mean, I was a software engineer. That's you know, I'm obviously in a slightly different role today. But my role was really exciting in that nobody had done what we'd done before. It was really trying to figure out how do we leverage all of this technological innovation and apply it to the construction industry, and being surrounded by really some seasoned talent. I mean, Leonid Nerwin, the founders of Revit, they created ProEngineer, the product that PTC really became famous for. This wasn't their first rodeo, so learning from them was exciting. And then, you know, in hindsight, looking back, you look at everything that everybody has created that was sort of in this little think tank. It's pretty wild what's come out of it.
Yeah, spectacular. So. I mean, Peter's a disruptor in himself, so it must have been nice to be able to know that your boss has similar tendencies, similar thoughts to you, and similar visions for construction technology and construction in general.
Well, that was the thing. When I met Peter, Peter is not what you would think of as a third generation owner of a construction business. Yeah. He's very down to earth. He's very easy to talk to, and without getting up on his soapbox, his pulpit, and preaching, he's very articulate in the way that he communicates his vision. And what excited me when I met him the first time was his vision of the future was directly impacted by mistakes that he and the Beck Group had made. Yeah. They had a project up in Philadelphia that had gone wrong, and they ended up in court, and he almost lost the business. And I think his big epiphany out of this court case was we assume an awful lot of risk for trying to do the right thing, but doing the right thing late in the game is part of the problem. It's not part of the solution. His big aha was, if we had been involved during the initial site selection, the initial pro forma development, the initial design conversations, and could have given feedback on cost and schedule, constructability, safety, that we really could have avoided all of the issues that we were trying to fix in the field. And as a result, we wouldn't have ended up in court. Yeah. Everybody would have won. Yeah. So, Peter's vision to me is we have an opportunity that I think is rare. Our industry has been slow to adopt innovation. It has been slow to adopt technology. But because of that, we're at a point in time where we really can do things substantially different from the way that we've done things before. Yeah. And everybody's lives are impacted by what we do. You and I live in houses, we're in an office building, parents, grandparents go to hospital. Everybody is touched by the built environment. And through that technological innovation that we think we can bring to AEC, we genuinely believe we can make everybody's lives better who is doing the work. Yeah. And then the output, the result, the buildings that we create, we think we can make them better. Yeah. And if we make them better, we can add an extra room to a hospital at the same cost, but come up with a creative way of doing it, reduce cost here so we can build an extra room. Potentially we can save lives. Yeah. Potentially we can build better schools and make the next generation's ability to be educated and retain information better. So ultimately, it's make the world a better place. Yeah. And I don't know anybody, particularly when I met Peter, I was in my mid-20s, that wouldn't get excited about being given an opportunity to make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
So,
and what level did you come on board at that stage? Were you?
I was one of 3 software developers that came down from Boston. So that was about early 2000, and the guy that was running it, a guy called Brad Phillips. Ended up leading Beck Tech till about end of 2001, right after 9/11. There was some significant changes internally as a result of the downturn that was caused by that event. And Brad assumed a different role. Brad basically became the CTO of the Beck Group. And I was asked to step up. And it was sort of funny when I look back, of the three that came down, I was the most junior.
Right.
And in that 18 months between joining Beck and being asked to take over, first I became kind of like the middle guy.
Yeah.
I flip-flopped with one of my bosses. And then when I was asked to run it, I was now the guy.
Chief, yeah.
So, but both those two guys still remain dear friends. They're great individuals. But yeah, so I was put in charge at the end of 2001, beginning of 2002, and at that time, Beck Tech really was an internal initiative. We were set up as a software company, but it was really developing tools to help Beck integrate. Sort of out of the Philadelphia project, Peter's sort of call to action was, how do we get involved earlier? And it was to bring in design in-house, bring in development in-house, bring in engineering review in-house, with the intention of really building out the capability to establish a budget that lined up with the design and collaboratively work on, if we need to cut the budget, let's make sure that the design team and the contractor are working not to give up quality, but to try to do it on a limited budget.
Brilliant.
We were really developing a product for that initiative. Yeah. How do you get design and construction to collaborate earlier, really in pre-construction? And then about 2004 was when I sort of had this big epiphany of my own, which was, we can get so far with Beck as a user. But if you really want to revolutionize the industry, create the future, that's our mission statement, you can't do it by having one customer, and you can't do it sort of in a vacuum. So I made a business case to commercialize Beck Tech, the entity, really with the desire for two things. One was to get more input, more direction, more industry opinion on what we were doing to guide our technology. And then two, to inject revenue so that we really could start to scale. With margins as tight as they are in construction, there's only so much money Beck can invest in a single initiative. So being able to grow beyond the means that Beck was comfortable investing was something I felt was equally as important. They're symbiotic. You have to have people, which costs money, to deliver on your technological vision. So we commercialized Beck Tech, the business, in 2006. We launched at the DBIA show in Baltimore, and made our first sale at a show in 2006.
Wow! So that was literally your first sale was at the show that you launched?
At the show that we launched. Wow. So those days of selling at shows is long gone.
You'll never forget that.
No, I never forget that.
No. And I would say you didn't even have a sales guy at that stage.
We didn't.
You were the sales guy.
Yeah, so, and I don't remember exact numbers. We were probably 6 or 7 people at that point in time, and everybody did a little bit of everything.
Wow.
So, you met Mike, our CTO, on the way in. Mike went to another show right afterwards, and he was our sales guy at that event and ended up making some sales. The beauty, though, so we've been in business since '96 was when Beck Tech was founded. So we're at 24 years. Brilliant. But when I go back to 2006, many of those early customers are still customers.
Yeah,
so even as we've developed new products, new solutions.
But just take you back slightly, arriving in Dallas, had you been to Dallas?
No. We came down to Dallas, and we ended up a day in North Dallas, a day in South Dallas, and then the flip of a coin, a day in East Dallas. And at the end of this, once it came down to we're being sold to Beck, we needed to decide the following Friday which of the houses that we'd seen did we want to buy.
Yeah.
So my wife pretty much pick the house.
Right.
And we ended up east of Dallas, out in the county of Rockwall, which is about 25 miles east of Dallas. You know, Dallas north, south, east, west, there's lots of availability to housing.
Good.
Relative to Boston, it was very, very inexpensive.
Good.
And in fact, you know, divulging probably more than your audience wants to hear, you know, in Boston, it was like we struggled. We really did. Even this is, you know, late 90s, affording a house, even though I was on a good salary.
Yeah.
And it was just that the relative percentage of your income that went to housing was really big.
Yeah.
When I came to Dallas, it was like you buy double the house for half the price.
Wow.
Compared to the Northeast. So that was huge.
That was nice, yeah.
Where we ended up going, schools are phenomenal. You know, in the state, if you look at the state rankings, Richardson, Plano, the area north are very, very good. Where we were out in Rockwall, very, very good, sort of top 1 or 2% in the state in terms of schools. With a new family, obviously that's very, very important. Why we ended up in Rockwall at the time was it was a very small town. And when I look back, I grew up southwest of London. I've always looked out the window and there's a house. And I had always had this vision in the back of my mind. I want to open up the back door and not see anybody. If I want to go out on the porch and in my pajamas, I can do that. So we were very fortunate that when we moved to Rockwall, we had that ability. It was on a bigger parcel of land. The commute can be a challenge. But for me personally, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Access to the airport, it's great where I'm at. So
good. And that's what I mean. My listeners, we relocate, as you know, a lot of people around the US, and it's key that they get an understanding of Dallas. If I was to ask you the 5 surprising things about Dallas and the 5 things that now, in hindsight, that you love more than ever, what would it be?
There's a lot that I like, love. So I was about to say the weather. So for 9 months of the year, genuinely, I love the weather. So you get to September through end of May, beginning of June. It's awesome. You know, our winters, for example, we talked about Iowa. You know, Iowa, it's cold. And it's cold from October through October. Not quite that, but Dallas, it really doesn't get super cold. We'll get, you know, snap freezes. We may get a week of an ice storm and lousy weather. But as soon as it's come, it's gone. And so being an athlete, I still swim every day. You know, it's my way of turning the world off. I was, Julie's heard this, our team's heard this. Self is not selfish. I do firmly believe in business. It takes a lot out of you, and there's this balance between business and home. And I think if you're going to be the best person in business and the best parent, husband, wife, whatever it is, you have to dedicate time to self. And I firmly believe that, you know, having an outside activity, ideally something that's athletic, I think is healthy. So for me, one of the beauties of where I live is access to swimming pools. I live 5 minutes from an aquatic center. I grew up in the swimming pool that I had was 25 meters. It was 4 lanes wide. There was no gutters. The lane lines were pieces of string. The aquatic center I have is you know, it's a $25 million facility. It's world class. So I absolutely love that. I actually love the people. And I know, you know, wherever I've been, I've liked the people that I've neighbored, but particularly in Texas, there is a genuine do-good kind of attitude where people will go out of their way to just help you when you need it. You know, my wife and our neighbor are friends. And they're completely different people from completely different backgrounds. My wife's from Iowa, this woman's from West Texas. But there's just this innate, you're sick, knock on the door, you know, there's a pie, there's a meal, there's a something. These kids need dropping off at school, they need picking up at school. The people in Texas in general, but the people that I've met in Dallas, there's just this grounded, genuine, I want to do good, and I want to help, people around me. Yeah. So I do love that. And you, as you walk around and you talk to the people in the office today, I hope you feel that.
Yeah, I felt it as soon as I landed. Even from the Uber coming in here, the lady could not have done enough. And everybody is the same. They come from the same mold. I haven't met anyone else not like that. Mm-hmm. And it's probably contagious.
Yeah.
If people are generally like that, and that's the culture of the state, then it's definitely going to outweigh anything else. So I definitely got that.
Yeah, the other one I would say is access to land. Kind of back to housing, and one of the big things with Dallas. I mean, as you drive around the city, I'm sure you've seen it, will see it. There's an awful lot of tower cranes going up. A lot of both multifamily, single family, a lot of office. A lot of the big companies that have left California have come to Texas, particularly the DFW area. Mm-hmm. State Farm, Toyota. Citibank, a lot of the big companies are coming here, and they're really coming here. I think it's a very business-friendly state. Yep. Dallas in particular is very, very business-friendly in terms of incentives for companies to come in. People are genuinely nice. Yeah. Land, and then amenities. It really is a wonderful city. Yeah. If you like, city life, going to the opera, going to a wonderful restaurant, there's all of those amenities downtown. And then you look in the surrounding suburbs, there's little pockets of that where you can get it wherever you live. You don't have to come downtown, but it also feels almost rural just because of the bigger lots.
Yeah, you don't get that everywhere.
No, you don't.
That's unusual. You mentioned Toyota, State Farm. They're coming here, they like to build, headquarters especially, they want to build their own building.
100%.
And I think that's the biggest attraction. Loads of land, it's pretty flat, so there's not much kind of complications.
Nope.
So I think Toyota are building a test track as well.
Oh, they are.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and sports teams, I'm still a football fan, but if you're a sports fan, it's hard to beat Dallas.
Yeah.
Ice hockey, basketball, baseball, football. There's the NASCAR, the Texas Motor Speedway. I mean, there's just every sport known to man.
Yeah.
So it really is a wonderful city. Yeah. And I'll be honest, when I came down, I didn't expect that. Yeah. I really didn't know. Like growing up, when I grew up, the TV show Dallas. Was J.R. Ewing and Bobby Ewing, and
that was still my idea of Dallas.
My idea was the Stetson and the cowboy hat, and,
yeah.
And you still see some of that, but
and that's nice too.
It is nice.
That's really
authentic.
Nice. Exactly.
In fact, if you go over to Fort Worth, you see more of the sort of the cattlemen, the ranching, than you do in Dallas. There's business in both cities, and you see the authentic cowboy hat and Stetsons in both. Yeah. But the cattle yards and that over in Fort Worth is pretty amazing.
Obviously, we've talked quite a lot about it. You've given me a fantastic kind of tour of the office. The developers, the production, everything is top notch. The new office is fantastic. Panoramic views around you can see for 40, 50 miles. Give us an idea now of how the last decade has been and what you're most looking forward to in the next decade.
Yeah, so, as we talked about earlier, when I go back to sort of 2006, 2007, there's half a dozen people.
Yeah.
And you look at us today, we're up at 70 plus employees, mainly located in Dallas. We have a few remote employees. In fact, it's actually good timing. We actually have our first quarterly meeting. We get together every quarter with all our employees, so everybody comes in that's out of the office. Nice. So we actually have some of our remote employees today. But over the last decade, obviously we've grown, and a lot of that has come about really in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And in the last 4 years, we've evolved from just having a conceptual modeling and estimating solution to really having a soup to nuts pre-construction solution. And why pre-con? It really is the belief that pre-construction is where we make the biggest impact on the outcome of a project. It's sort of the McLeamy curve. You have the ability to make the biggest changes at the lowest amount of cost and impact on the process, positive impact on the project. And we really look at the industry as being underserved. If you look at the last 30 years in pre-con, it's all been about estimating. Yeah. And you look at a lot of the technology, they're really spreadsheets with a database of items that you can kind of pull from. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the world of pre-con in our mind has substantially changed. And that rate of change is accelerating. So to us, pre-construction is everything that happens around why that building, why that budget, why that schedule, before we go out and build it. And sort of back to where we started with simulation, today there is no opportunity to simulate. The tools that people have, they struggle just getting the estimate out in the window of time that they've been given. If you look at the window of time, it's shrinking. Owners used to give them a month, they're now down to 2 weeks, it'll be down to a week, it'll be down to half a week. That window is shrinking. So the old way of just reacting has two problems. One, you haven't got time to react the way you used to react. Do the takeoff, now copy and paste into Excel or another solution, monkey around with the report, somebody checks it, hit print, go. That it just doesn't work. And then the second point is it doesn't really serve the need. The need is that the right design for the budget that the owner has in mind? And coming up with value alternatives, not value engineering late in the game when we're over budget and we've got to get rid of cost. It really is, how can the pre-construction team, when I talk about the pre-con team, it's not just the contractor, it's the designer, maybe some of the major subs, some of the engineers, all collaborating to come up with the best possible project for the owner. And really working as a team. I really see that as where the industry sort of is going. On our end, we believe that by integrating technology, so instead of you have lots of point solutions, a tool for doing takeoff, 2D takeoff, a tool for doing 3D takeoff, a tool for doing estimating, a tool for doing conceptual, a tool for doing bid day. By integrating them, we can free up time, we can reduce risk. And then as a result of integrating them, you get more value. Instead of having to explain where the quantities came from, you can visually communicate where the quantities come from. Pick on an item in the estimate and it'll show you where in the takeoff that came from. Pick in the model to show you the items that are associated with it. So this integration is really where we're at today. Where we're heading is we believe that by integrating, we now start to collect data in a standardized way. And if you look at other industries, this notion of big data and cloud computing really relies on a standard set of data being collected in a centralized repository, and then being able to analyze it and provide feedback to users. So where we get excited is, well, now everybody's got the data in one place. We can start to leverage simulation, the power of cloud computing, to proactively recommend things to the user. So instead of the user having to go off and figure out what are all the VE options, we've done 100 projects, we've done 100 alternatives manually. Why can't the computer go figure out which ones make sense in the context that we're at and proactively tee them up for the pre-construction team? So really it's about collecting data and then providing the pre-construction team more analysis tools, the ability to study more options, come to the table proactively with those options. When we're talking to subs, let's look at all the history of that particular sub and all of the projects they've given us costs on, and let's work with that sub to understand why they think this particular project takes more time or more resources. And maybe there's things that collectively we can do to reduce the number of resources, or maybe that is the right team configuration and we got to find savings elsewhere to get whatever we want. So I kind of see the today is integration. I see the future as leveraging the data that has come as a result of integrating.
One thing that we talked about before on the phone call about Beck Technology is product installation and partnership. I'd like to dive a little bit more into that.
So the Beck Group was a big user of Timberline. And I think there was a couple of reasons why they ultimately made the switch to Estimator. One was, I think just like everybody else I mentioned earlier, they feel like the world of pre-construction is changing. And there's an awful lot of inherent risk with using a takeoff tool and copying and pasting it into Excel and manipulating numbers and pasting it into Timberline in their case. And they were looking for, how do we reduce the risk? How do we make it more efficient? So I think one of the factors was their world was changing. The second was their competitors were already using the product and successfully winning projects by being able to show this additional capability. So Beck moved into that world. For us, when we work with a prospect to try and convert them into a customer, there's really three things that we focus on. You have to have great technology. There's no getting away from it. The world of pre-construction, there's an awful lot of built-in risk. There's an awful lot of deadlines that if you miss the deadline because the technology won't work, you lose the project, and we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So the technology just has to work. I believe we have great tech. The second part is you have to have a plan that you help the contractor to change. Change is not easy. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm fast approaching 50. And as I get older, I notice change is harder. It's not easy. And you, as a software vendor, you can't expect a customer to deploy your technology enterprise-wide without you helping them develop an implementation plan and really do a lot of the heavy lifting. They're busy. They don't have the time. They don't have the energy to do their day job, which you and I know is oftentimes a 50, 60 hour a week job. And on a side project, help implement this new technology. So we take it upon ourselves that in every one of our enterprise customers, we work with them to build a customized implementation plan around their schedules. They perform the role of director, so they direct us with what needs to happen, but we have a recipe that we sort of follow. We build some data, we test the data, and then we deploy. And that can take anything from 6 to 12 months to happen based on the customer's schedule and availability. The third part is really part of our core value, this notion of caring. So passion, innovation, caring are our core values. But really being a partner over the length of the engagement. And to us, we want to get to the point that this is a once in a career decision. You pick Beck Tech, you're with Beck Tech for the rest of your career. We're continuing to add functionality to the product. We're continuing to add value on a daily basis to help you solve whatever issues you run into. A big part of the partnering is really getting their feedback on the product, and this is sort of symbiotic. As we add features to the product that have come from the customer, they benefit the customer. As we add more product features in, we attract more customers. So a lot of what we do with partnering is around jointly developing the product. Obviously, we're not asking our pre-construction executives and team members to write code, but we do have some very, very passionate people who get excited around our product roadmap, but specific features. And it's not uncommon to have phone calls every 2 or 3 weeks as we're developing our functionality, testing ideas. As our development team is starting to stand up technology, test the product. Does it do what you thought it was going to do the way that you were going to do it? Way in advance of you actually deploying it in a production environment, and getting it right the first time is really the name of the game. So product, plan, and partner, the 3 Ps is what we do. We do I think a really good job at recruiting people that line up with our core values. Our interviewing process at Beck Tech is we interview for culture first. And I know a lot of companies will say that. We really believe that if you're not passionate, you aren't willing to challenge the status quo, and you don't care deeply about everybody you're working with, the customer, and the built environment, this is not the career for you. There are plenty of other opportunities out there where I'm sure you'll fit. So for us, having people that genuinely care about pre-construction, about our vision, making the world a better place through improved capital projects, is really important to the 3 Ps.
So that's a great background in Beck Technology. What excites you? What gets you out of bed in the morning now to see whether it's Beck Technology or technology within construction in the next decade? Is there a couple of things that you've got your eye on without giving away any secrets?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, genuinely, and I think again it goes back to core values, and it starts with Peter, and then it goes to me and others, our leadership team, and it goes throughout the whole organization. I get super excited when I see the impact that our technology is having on our customers. So I'd love every email in my email to be an inbound from a customer talking about either what's not working, but ideally what they love about what we're doing. And I am really proud. I get those on a regular basis, like weekly.
Brilliant.
And so it's not the thing that gets me out, attaboy, but I do think like seeing the impact that you have, it just re-energizes you, re-motivates you. So we have some traditions at Beck Tech. One of them is sending out win announcements. A win announcement historically has been, I've got a new customer, it's the sales team. Yeah. We celebrate a lot, and we celebrate inbounds from customers. Our implementation team's done a great job. Our support guy answered a question, dug me out of a hole, something didn't work the way it was supposed to work. We have our bugs just like everybody else, but it's what you do when you have the bug. Yeah. And those are pretty special. So that's the first thing. In terms of technology and where it's going, what gets me out of bed at night is, or up in the morning I guess, is this idea of we now have data. And you look at predictive analytics, suggestive analytics, machine learning, optimization. The world in which we live in, it's there, but we don't really know it's there. So for example, I log into Amazon, and Amazon will tell me what my wife's buying choices are. We recommend a handbag, or we recommend a pair of shoes or a belt. Well, all of that's come about through my wife's buying history in our account. Yeah. Well, why can't we do the same with construction? It's not the first rodeo for any of many of these construction companies. They've built hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of projects. Why can't we use the data in a way to suggest better options, better alternatives? Unit prices, which historically has given us the least amount of variance or least amount of issues in the field, who's had the lowest safety rating. And be able to put all that at the fingertips of the user. So we always talk about removing low value activities, trying to automate those. Mm-hmm. Copying and pasting should be a thing of the past. It should just happen. You do the takeoff, it should show up in the estimate. You pick a sub, their number should just show up in the estimate. Sort of the low value moving of data, copying of data, re-entering data, those need to go away. Mm-hmm. The high value analysis, spending more time human to human, talking about what can we do to make this project better, and then using some of the suggestions from the computer that we pick to make the project outcome better. That's where I get excited, is the make the building better. Not just deliver it because that's what the architect designed and then hack it to pieces to get it back in budget. I want to get rid of that. Yeah. I want our customers to have the ability to deliver the highest quality product at a reasonable price that everybody agrees with early in the life of the project at a reasonable amount of time, and we work collaboratively to deliver that. And I genuinely think within the next 5 years we're going to start to see a lot of that. Yeah. In that 5 to 10, I think it's going to become more and more of the norm. Yeah. That construction isn't this dirty industry anymore. Yeah. It's a value added service business where we deliver a quality product and we get rewarded for the work that our participants put in.
And the people that are jumping on board and saying, listen, okay, and what I love as well, and I think you've got the Beck Technology and yourself have got the same idea of collaboration and information sharing. People are so concerned about giving their competitors a bit of information. Doing these podcasts, you can see people going, well, I don't really want to talk about that just in case someone else. But we've got to start collaborating and sharing information, knowledge retention as well. This is one of the reasons that we do this. The graduates coming out of schools, the guys that maybe aren't going to spend 5-10 years on the site before they could become estimators. These guys need to know all the tricks of the trade.
100%.
And the guys coming out of retiring or leaving the industry, we've got to get their knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's really important.
Well, I was going to say, I laugh because you look at any given market, everybody's working with the same pool of subs.
Yeah.
Everybody's working with the same manufacturers. So, I mean, do you really think that the secret sauce is the unit prices?
Yeah.
The secret sauce to me is your ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
So I genuinely think pre-construction personnel of the future, it's all about your ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
And where I kind of get excited around technology is I do think it accelerates that learning path for young professionals who are entering the industry. To your point earlier, everybody can visualize pictures, 3D, 2D. Being able to use technology as a way of accelerating career development, I think, is also a beneficial side effect of what we're seeing. You can sit that seasoned pre-construction professional with an entry-level pre-construction professional, and collaboratively, they can work together. Yeah. And there's this transfer of information, and I've used the word twice. It is symbiotic. Generally speaking, younger people are more facile with technology.
Yeah.
I think there's this reverse mentoring that can happen with technology. The entry-level people can actually mentor the senior, more experienced persons. And then the opposite on knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, why do we build it that way? Well,
yeah.
because of this, and this. I think it just becomes a way of accelerating career. Why we get excited as well about what we are trying to do as it relates to niche is, I mentioned our implementation plan. A large part of our implementation is training, and one of the things that we're developing is a certification program for our customers. And one of the things that we obviously offered up to niche is anybody in our industry that's interested in technology. And I think the concepts that we've been talking about today, this integration of 2D, 3D, estimating, bid leveling, cost history, it's not only unique to us. Obviously, I'm a little biased that I think we have a pretty good offering, but I think it's the way the world's going. And what we're offering up to anybody interested, anybody, junior, mid-level, senior, who wants to learn a little bit about this, is access to our certification program that we'll be rolling out at the end of Q1 this year. And our hope is, obviously, that people can get something from it, a new skill that they can bring either back to their business or bring into a new business, and help accelerate this change that we're starting to see in the industry.
Yeah,
so
that's fantastic. And what brought about that idea? Was that obviously it's a value add, but was that feedback from the customers?
It is very much feedback from the customers. I mean, you're in this world. There's definitely a transient nature to construction. People move from one firm to another. And as we've started to pick up more and more of these enterprise customers, there's more and more of a desire to have employees join the firm that already know our product, and also sort of know these ideas. They expect to see a click on an item I see where in the 2D world or 3D world it came from. So our big aha was listening to our customers and trying to figure out, well, how do we help serve our customers? Yeah. And then the connection, obviously, with niche has been great, because I feel like, we're working together to solve that problem. How do we provide the most educated, highly qualified individuals that have a wonderful experience at a new home? And I think a large part of that is learning the way the industry's going, and then having tools in their tool belt that when they hit the ground, they can run with them.
Absolutely. Well, listen, sir, that was fascinating. Fun. We could sit here all day. Couldn't we?
We could.
I also just want to mention before we finish, a big thank you to Beck Technology. Beck Technology are going to be the sponsor of the Preconstruction Podcast moving forward. So we're going to do a little bit of work on that now. But I just want to say thank you very much for that. And I'm really looking forward to partnering with you and seeing what comes of Beck Technology and pre-construction.
Oh, well, thank you for coming all the way down to Dallas and visiting with us. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it.
All right, man.
Thank you very much.